Welcome back to the Coolbet Canada podcast. Pat Gregoire, Jake Bullen-Moss, and Coolbet Chris Abbott joining you once again. Before we get into our Brier 2022 preview with Andrew Hustler Paterson of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and of course the Coolbet ambassador, we got to get into something here because this is hot on the streets. This is hot in the Twitterverse. And Chris, your mentions have been an absolute dumpster fire this week. I'm talking about the analytics versus the eye test. The floor is yours, my man. This is your rebuttal from the tweet that went pretty much viral at the start of one morning and just completely had legs of its own.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there was no intention to rile up the analytics community. It was the furthest thing from the case. I've recently just in my feed been seeing a lot of like whining really, or like excuses like, oh yeah, but the expected goals were this, the expected goals were that, well, this guy's expected shots were this, but and I was just, blowing off steam, being like, I'm so sick of people talking about expected goals, expected saves, expected blah, 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 blah. And that was it. And my thing is like, in hockey, it's really hard to quantify all the moving parts, right? I get it. I'm not against analytics. I'm a premium member of Fangraphs when it comes to baseball analytics before placing my bets. So I was, I literally had just woke up and I was like, oh, I'm so sick of this and spouting off. Like I look at hockey as a guy who played it, coached it, broadcast for 35 years. I just know that it's so hard to weight and assign a number to all the moving parts of the game where your opponent is constantly shifting, 4 different lines, 3 different defense pairs. There's different tactics based on the, the part of the game you're in. Is it a low forecheck? Is it a pressure forecheck? Is it a, more of a trap style? Are the defensemen coming down the wall on the wingers? Is that why they can't get the puck out? Or maybe they're not getting pressure or blah, blah, blah. And I just think there's so many data points in a game that it's really, really hard to make that make sense. Now, I know the technology is improving. I know that at some point we may get there. And I know that it's a really good tool for teams and whomever to evaluate an individual's play over a long period of time. And yes, I know that betting lines are set on expected goals and expected saves and all of that stuff. And even our bookies are like, Chris, come on. I'm like, of course I know that's where it's set. Like that's where the lines come from. But that's also why people bet underdogs. People bet the other side of it. If we always bet the expected outcome, then there'd be no betting market. So, I wasn't saying, oh, this is trash, this is stupid. It was just like, I'm tired of it being used as an excuse or a reason why a team didn't win or a reason why a guy didn't hit his shot prop or blah, blah, blah. It's because in the span of one individual game, it's really, really hard to pinpoint whether that's going to happen or not. So I apologize to the people who have dedicated their lives to analytics. I was not trashing your science. It's brought a lot to our game. I appreciate those who quietly reached out and said, hey, you know what? No, it's not the be all end all. We like to use it to do this, to confirm what we're seeing, or to try and make sense of something that we think should probably be happening based on a guy's past, or blah, 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 blah. And I had some really good conversations. What I'm not cool with, though, is the Yahoos online. And maybe that's super naive of me because that is what online is. And I think it's a greater societal issue that we have this just rush to like condemn people and people like, oh, does your employer know that you think this way? It's like, buddy, who are you? Who, like, yeah, let firecracker 4747. I like get out of here. I'm not, it's, oh man, that's what, I really had to bite my tongue after that and not kind of get into the Twitter wars and stuff like that. But I think it's really unfortunate that that's everybody's kind of go-to. Is the sarcastic reply, is the, oh, you're an idiot, oh, blah, oh, you're afraid of it, so you don't. It's like, you don't understand it, so you're afraid of it. No, of course I don't understand it. I don't work on spreadsheets all day. I'm not a data scientist. and neither are you, Jim Bob Hearts Toronto. Like, I'm not, it's not like that. But anyway, people like to read into tweets. People like to take your words and fire them back at you. And it's really unfortunate. I do appreciate the people who reached out though and had a good chat. And hey, I did not realize the wrath that would come down on me. I think, well, first of all, I think it's bullshit that there is a wrath, but apparently I'm not the first person to experience this. I've had some conversations with other people in the media. Yeah, there's a place for it, of course. Is it my preferred way to look at a game or analyze a game? No. Do I think there's value in assigning or reviewing some of these numbers and seeing if they line up with what you're seeing? Of course, yes. But it's the best predictive thing that we have right now. But if it was perfect and if it was the exact amount, and to be fair, I don't think people are saying that's what it is. But for me, I just think for a sport like hockey with so many moving pieces, so many variables night to night, that it's really hard to get a real, true, clear picture of a team's one-off game based on what's expected of that night. But anyhow, that's probably not the best way to explain it, but I mean, I just try and take a clear view of it. And I spoke to you guys kind of in private, just that it's super frustrating. It's anxiety inducing to have that kind of like response to you online. And I think that overall, the biggest thing I've learned from this is to be a lot more careful with how I respond to people's tweets. Not what I tweet out myself, because whatever, those are my thoughts. But to be admonished for having thoughts, it's pretty shitty. And I think we need to be really, really careful about how we approach others online. And hey, we've heard stories of whether it's teenagers or whatever getting bullied online. And listen, I'm a grown ass man, 40 years old, and I got bullied the other day, right? Like, I don't get people, oh, Chris is crying, blah, blah. No, I got full on bullied by people online, and it didn't feel good. And I can handle it, but I don't think that that's the way I ever want to interact with people online.
Absolutely not. And I think that's the bigger issue at this, not whether you think a game can be predicted on a calculator or a spreadsheet, or if you think that, the hockey needs to be the way it once was and not worried about numbers. That's here nor there. That's just such a smaller debate for another day. The big thing is just how we react to each other online. And I jokingly said it was a dumpster fire, but that's literally what it was. It was
bad. It was
bad. Yeah, it was bad. But
it's clearly sorry, Pat. It's clearly an argument though, because as many people who were rallying against it, there's a group of people who are like, yeah, it's not my preference either, and I don't think that you can quantify it. And so there's but again, and then it's like, oh, you're anti-science. Yes, absolutely. I'm anti-science. Yeah.
Well, that's a treat. Yeah. That's a treat.
Yeah. But anyway,
that's the thing. But if you look at the other side, and I think on the other side, there's the people who are very, very anti-stats, and they, poke fun at the quote unquote, pencil geeks and, oh, you've never played the game. So I think that community is just so battered by that side of the argument that they think that if someone is pushing against their argument, they just assume that you are, trashing the way they're thinking, which you are not. You're making a statement.
Yeah.
You're making a statement. And I think that's why they push back so hard. I'm more in the middle. I'm not one to use analytics by any stretch of the imagination. My brain does not work that way. I'm more of an eye test guy, but I appreciate how analytics are used. You said it perfectly. It's a tool. It's to quantify what your eyes are seeing. And I think that there are a lot of people in the analytics community that recognize that, and that's the way they're supposed to use. Then there's others that just think this is the be end all and that games are decided on a spreadsheet, and that's just not the way it is. But the big thing for me is just the way how it's so divisive, and it's just talking about numbers and a sport. And it can get so ridiculous over numbers and a sport. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
Jake, I saw you were shaking your head a little bit there. I know this is a
well, Leafs Twitter is big into the deserve to win-o-meter. Have you guys ever been to that site?
I've
yes,
seen it.
Absolutely.
Basically, it tracks all these analytical stats and tells you what percentage a team deserves to win a game. Well, guess what? In hockey, a lot of the times the team that deserves to win a game doesn't always win a game. It's just factual. So like you said, Chris, if these stats were so accurate and perfect all the time, then I think we would clearly see that, and there probably wouldn't be a gambling market for it. But because they're not, we're sitting here and we're talking about it right now, right? So I don't know. I'm not big on the crazy stats. Maybe it's just because I don't understand them that well either. So I'm sure that comes into it. But I do believe there's room for both the analytics and the eye test, especially when it comes to hockey. Like you said, Chris, it's different for every sport, and baseball's excelled with the way they've done their analytics. But there's even times in baseball where I'm not sure. I think it was a couple years ago in the shortened season, the Jays' first game, I think, against the Rays. We had a good start. I forget who it was, maybe Schumacher. Good start out of him, and they was only going 3 innings, and they weren't doing anything more than that.
Yes.
Whatever reliever came in got hit for 2 or 3 runs, and that was the end of the game. So I don't know. Like I think if a guy's on. Like it's just I don't know. I know it's a lot bigger in baseball. We don't got to get into that whole thing right now, but I don't know. I think there's room for both. I don't think it has to be one or the other.
Baseball, and especially playoff baseball, is such an emotionally charged time of year. It's like when Blake Snell got yanked, in the World Series, and it's like, if a guy's rolling, let him get in trouble and then go get him out of there. If he, there's no, and most of us have played hockey. We've also played a bit of ball, and it's like, leave him out there. Guy, he gets in trouble, walks a guy, or a guy gets to second. All right, fine. And then they'll say, well, the numbers say that the reliever is better to start with a fresh inning and blah, blah, blah. But I agree, man. If you got a guy out there who's pitched well for you, who's a bit of a stud for you, you got to let him go. I think you got to let him go. But the baseball is increasingly managed by computers, we can get into that if we ever get a baseball season, I guess.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. If we ever get a baseball season, fingers crossed we do. Chris, you mentioned coaching and me being a coach. If there is a tool that can potentially help me coach a better game and come out with a victory, I would be ignorant not to at least be open to that. And I think that's where I think everyone has to realize that these coaches are going to use their tools. I know there's some old school coaches who, depending on, it doesn't matter which sport, they're going to completely reject them because that's not the way that they were playing in their days, or that's not how they've coached in their careers. But you would be crazy not to at least be open to see those numbers. You see the numbers, and if you don't agree with the numbers and it doesn't convince you, then yeah, go with your gut. But to then on the flip side, just follow just because the numbers are telling you that's what you're supposed to do. It's the same thing in football with going for it on 4th down. Now that is, and going for the 2-point conversion. Now there's so much more analytics into decision-making like that. You just hope that it doesn't galaxy brain too many of these coaches where they're just going off the analytics every time. And that gut, reaction or the trust that you have in your team that makes you a good coach, where you can really read how the game's going. That's how the best game coaches and the managers in the world, when they get those reads on how the game's going, you don't want to take that element out of the game as well either. So that's just the way I thought of it.
So when you use that 2-point conversion thing as an example, you never hear the analytics say to go for it against this team. You only ever hear the analytics say to go for it. So what if you're playing a team with like the number 2 goal line defense in the league? Then why are you doing it? Right? You got to pick your spots. If you're playing a team with a dog shit goal line defense and it's early in the game and you're not worried about leaving a point on the field, yeah, sure. But also just take your 7.
Yeah.
Especially early. That's the one that gets me, is when it happens early. I get it when it's late and you're down a couple of scores and, whatever. But just take your points, because we see too often, and I think in football, you have teams that left 4 or 5 points on the field in the first half, and they're looking for those when the time runs out.
Yeah, no
doubt. What about Harbaugh this year? Did it twice, I think. and they have the best kicker in the league in the Ravens, right? I mean, Justin Tucker, he's automatic. He's not going to miss an extra point. And the one against the Steelers, and I think the following week he did the same thing. Went for 2 and lost both.
Yeah, he's not going to miss an extra point, and he's probably going to hit you the 60-yarder in overtime. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's something, again, you could go on this topic for days. Maybe we will do this as an episode down the road when the sports calendar quiets a little bit. I know we had a little bit of a lull in the sports calendar, but now it's heating up. College basketball is getting into the thick of things. Hockey every single night is becoming more and more important. The NBA slate is heating up as they approach their playoffs. But of course, here in Canada, the 2022 Canadian Men's Curling Championship is upon us. It's the Brier. And of course, we had to bring in our guy, Andrew Hustler Paterson. He's going to give us some of his best bets, some of his hot takes, and just talk about how much he loves curling. Coming up next, Andrew Hustler Paterson to give us a preview of the Brier. All right, for the second time, the first ever reoccurring guest of the Coolbet Canada podcast, Andrew Hustler Paterson. Your t-shirt's in the mail. Huss, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Guys, it is a pleasure. I would do this on a weekly basis just to chop it up with you fellas. But as Chris will attest, big week for Coolbet and big week for curling fans coast to coast. The Brier is on, starting tomorrow night out in Lethbridge. And God knows we had so much fun out at the Olympic trials earlier this year. This is going to be, it's too bad that we're not out there. We'll maybe look to do that next year when it's a little closer to you guys. I'll make it out for that. But, a really fascinating number of teams there. Obviously, we've just had the Olympics, and Brad Gushu's gone through a lot. Is still the favorite coming in. So, and I got to give credit to Hot Dog and the boys back at the bookmaking operation. We've got all sorts of futures going in before they throw the first rock, and we've got like grand salamis, if you will, the curling version of Total Rocks and all the matches. I mean, there's a lot of options out there to wager on, and it's going to make this Brier, I think, that much more fun for guys like us.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to say, Matt does a phenomenal job, and the pound for pound leader in curling betting entertainment here at Coolbet.
No doubt about that.
It's called the Grand Salami in other sports. I think we got to call it like the Grand Hot Dog for curling in honor of our guy. I think that's what we're gonna have to rename that, because that is awesome. And Huss, you mentioned it. It's great. The Brier's back. The fans are back. But the most important question I have to ask, I don't know if either is the patch back? Do we know if there's a patch here at this Brier, or is that
it's in Alberta, dude? Like, there's no rules. Right. Like trust me, the patch is going to be back. Anyone that is lucky enough to be at the patch will have absolutely no idea that there has been any sort of pandemic for the last 2 years. That is my prediction. Now, if this was maybe in a different province somewhere else, we may have to discuss that. I think I will be emptying the entire account on the yes bet to the Brier activity. And to be honest, and Chris, you'll speak to this. I mean, that is honestly what these events are about. Obviously, what's happening on the ice, but what's happening with the fans is right there as well. And it's really impacted the sport, I think, over the last couple of years. I mean, it has not been the same. And I think that this is going to be the start of hopefully curling really getting back to normal. And, while the action on the ice will continue to be great with the best that Canada has to offer, I do think it'll be a real fun weekend in Lethbridge. Now, maybe you don't have the same amount of people that normally travel to the event. I think that'll be more so hopefully into next year. But, make no mistake about it. There'll be plenty of licensed establishments in and around the curling venue where the fans will be able to wet their whistle.
Yeah, being a pub owner in Lethbridge is a real good occupation this week, and it should be a good time. I mean, and the playoffs are kind of pared down, right? Like fewer teams get into the playoffs, which means the curlers are out earlier in the week. Ain't nobody leaving.
All the flights are still for Monday.
Yeah.
And boys, we got some huge storylines coming into this one. Kevin Cooey has a chance to become first skip to with 5 Brier championships. Gushu looking for his fourth. He become one of 5 guys with 4. I'll start with you, Chris. What's your biggest storyline that you're looking forward to ahead of this year's Brier?
My biggest storyline is that a lot of these teams won't look the same next year. So every time the Olympic cycle ends, there's movement. There's guys that are going to retire. There's guys that are going to leave teams. There's guys that have been living in provinces where they would not live solely for curling. So I think that's my biggest story. I think this is, going to be the last time to watch some of these guys. Now, the Grand Slams, they're going to be there, and the players in Toronto here is going to be outstanding. By the way, we'll have tickets for each and every one of you, including you, Hustler. You can stay at room number 2 here at Shea Abbott, and that's going to be outstanding. But the Brier is a different beast, and the biggest storyline for me is, can Kevin Cooey win one at home here again? Brad and those guys coming off the Olympics. Actually, I think I haven't looked at their schedule, but I think the Gushu rink could be a decent fade early on. Now, not against Quebec in their opening game, but I think there's got to be a massive letdown for those guys. Honestly, and through no fault of their own, they're not even supposed to be here. They didn't qualify. They didn't play in a provincial. This is really kind of the victory lap, and they well deserve it. Don't get me wrong whatsoever. But this isn't something that was really on their radar. It was Olympics, and now this is kind of the after. So from a betting perspective, I think there might be some slots early in the event where you might be able, whether it's a spread or a money line, to bet against Gushu's team, and but have no doubt, once they get the feel of the event, they're still going to be there at the end of the day.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'll start it off the Gushu rank, and on full disclosure, I've faded them big time on this event. I mean, I really do think that while they were the deserving Olympic representatives, and they won, it went right down to he and Brad Jacobs at the event out in Saskatoon that we were at, Chris. The emotional toll on those Beijing Olympics is a real thing, and I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure I just saw a tweet of them traveling out like earlier today, to get there. So, I mean, not a lot of time to prepare. I mean, they had their time with their families, and now they're getting put right into it. And listen, I get why they were the favorite. I mean, they have been the best team. They won the Olympic trials. People assume that they'll be the top team. But I mean, if you think back to Saskatoon, I mean, the difference between the Jacobs rink and Gushu's was absolutely razor thin. And, I really think ever since, that final rock in the final in Saskatoon, the Jacobs rink has been preparing for this moment, while the Gushu rink is really just getting around to that right now. So, and to be honest, we've seen, and Chris, I know you were away last week, but when you were in Vegas, Dusty and I broke this down when the odds had come out. And, we've already seen, I think, a lot of the public kind of getting behind that narrative. I mean, the Gushu or the Jacobs rink originally was coming out to win the event at plus 330. They've gone down to plus 275, and a lot of support for both Northern Ontario and Alberta in their respective groups in the round robin, numbers that have come down a little bit. So if you do have faith in Gushu, waiting, I think, certainly will pay off, because the number's a lot better right now. But I still think that there's a small, not a handful of teams that we should expect to be kicking around on the weekend playing for the Brier Championship. And no one would be surprised if Gushu will be there. But I do think that it's going to be a unique challenge for their club, and, some maybe challenges that other teams don't have, considering what they've been through over the course of the past month.
And a couple other things, guys, that I think we need to watch for, and this is less from betting and more about how the curling community responds. This will be the first time we've seen Brendan Botcher since the public split from Darren Moulding. Botcher's always been a popular player and a popular team. Now he's playing in his home province, so that'll take some of the sting away. But I'm curious to see how the narrative plays out there. And also, friend of the show, back on the ice, the Right Reverend Glenn Howard. I am so excited to see Glenn play. Obviously, we wish our guys from Team Epping were there, but if it has to be somebody else, the coolest cat that there ever was, Glenn Howard. I'm really excited.
Well, I mean, I'll always be appreciative for that week in Saskatoon. We had such a great time doing the content and watching the games, but by far the best part of that entire week was sitting around a Team Epping HQ late at night, hearing curling stories from Glenn Howard and just seeing him basically hold court amongst us and so many of the younger curlers. And a couple of those younger curlers that are friends of Coolbet and certainly friends of our program here in Winnipeg are Maddie Dunstone. And Dunstone right now, and we'll get to this when we go through the odds, the fourth favorite right now, 8-1 to win the event as wildcard number 2. And the other guy that was in there that was playing, in that event was Colton Lott. And Colton Lott is from just north of where I'm at in Winnipeg, up at Winnipeg Beach, one of the top mixed curlers in the world, along with Kadriana Sahadiak, but has also been skipping his own team. And, it wasn't Jason Gunlickson's squad that's in this that was in the Manitoba final that beat Mike McEwen's rink earlier in the event. It was Colton Lott's. So they had a near miss. They did not have the points to qualify as a wild card team. And I had actually made arrangements for him to come on the program a couple times during the Brier to talk about what was going on. Well, he's playing in it now. Colin Hodgson is out of the event. Lott is playing with Team McEwen. And I was speaking with Reed Carruthers earlier today. And I mean, they're sort of excited. I mean, Hodgie's been such a big part of this team. It's not a benefit to lose a guy that you've been with, but he'd been dealing with injuries. They had played as a 3-man unit at times in the Manitobas. So to have a player of the skill level and even a young player, the experience of Colton Lott adding to Team Mike McEwen, a lot of excitement from Manitoba about that. But I think we're going to see some of these young guns get an opportunity to go head to head against the best in the game. But it is, guys, really the usual suspects of Jacobs, Gushu, Cooey, and of course Botcher. And just quickly on the Botcher note, the guy went 4 straight Canadian championship matches. He was the bridesmaid 3 times in a row, finally got over the top. And then, we're here for the curling drama. And, that was a huge, huge story with Darren Moulding getting bounced. And of course, Moulding now playing on the New Brunswick squad. And New Brunswick has very limited hopes, I think, to win the entire thing. But certainly from a crowd perspective and people following that, they will be sort of like a pseudo Alberta team, because I think Moulding has a lot of support and certainly got a lot from the curling community after somewhat of a messy divorce of a team that had so much success for a really long time here in Canada.
And I wouldn't rule out some underdog wins from James Grattan's rink, because they do it every year. Every single year, people underestimate his rink out of New Brunswick. Now they've got a world-class player brought in as well. They can only get better. So I would look for some underdog plays on New Brunswick during the event. 125-1 to win. Don't know about that. But to qualify from their pool at plus 465 might be something I'd certainly take a look at.
Huss, you were talking about Team Manitoba, and I was obviously going to ask you about that and all the influence with that province. But I like Mike McEwen here, at plus 1350. It's a little bit of a long shot, but I thought there was some value at him, in his rink to advance into the playoffs at plus 270. I think that in itself is a pretty value play right there, no?
Yeah, to get down to the top 3, and we maybe should need to go through and I got burned by a couple top 3 bets in the Scotties. The Tracy Fleury, and we had a lot of talk about Tracy Fleury, that crazy number which was so high. Well, it turned out that she had COVID, but then Selena Govan played so well, they rolled through as the number 1 team in the pool, no problem. And then the only way they could have not gotten into the top 3 was to lose their first game and then lose the 3-4 game. And the crazy thing about it was the 2 teams that won the groups, the Fleury rink and Carrie Anderson, both lost. So whoever, as opposed to those guys meeting in the 1-2 game, it was then an elimination game, and they got bounced out. But here's the thing about McEwen. I mean, Mike, when he is hot, he can throw, he can throw the big shot as well as anyone. As a team, I think they've struggled to have some of the consistency that a Jacobs, a Gushu, a Cooey has had over the course of the last number of years. But I mean, they've won big events. They've been in the finals of big events. There's absolutely no doubt that they can play with those players at the highest level. And Chris, I'm sure you'd agree with this. These guys are so good. It can often come down to, one simple mistake, often not by the skip. I mean, it could be the second setting up an end that, the best teams just simply take advantage of, don't make a mistake and end up making you pay. But I'll tell you what, the way that they played at the Manitoba Championship, the way they were tested by a team like Colton Lots, I think puts them in a good spot. And I think most of all, I think they're in a really good headspace. There was so much push to go into that Olympic trials. It didn't go their way as it did for everybody else that wasn't named Brad Gushue's rink. And they've regrouped and now have a chance to go back at it. And, you know, who knows what this team is going to look like, you know, beyond this. To your point, Chris, I mean, I think there will be a lot of changes. I mean, Reed Carruthers has been a skip in the past before. Colton Lott certainly will probably be skipping his own rink, or maybe it's some different incarnation. And there's been some questions of Mike with the young family, whether he'll continue to play at this level. So a lot on the line for this group that has done so much for so long, but hasn't really excelled at the Brier. And tell you what, there'll be a lot of people around here in the heartland of the sport that are really pulling for Mike's team. And if they can get off to a good start in their group, I think they'll be a very interesting team as we get towards the end of next week and into the playoff round.
Yeah, and I'm probably going off script here, but I'm having all these thoughts, so I want to keep going.
Keep them rolling, baby. Keep them rolling.
The first 6 to 8 teams on this odds board, especially the first 6, which, you know, you put McEwen at the bottom of that list. There's no reason to me that a Brendan Bottcher at 13-1, Mike McEwen at 13.50-1 aren't 2 bets that everybody should make, because these guys can very, very easily win this event. You know, somebody's got to be the favorite, and the odds have got to play out from there. But I think it's not unrealistic to think that these teams have a shot.
Well, it is, but I mean, the Bottcher number is bizarre. I mean, let's face it. I mean, when we've talked Brier for the last 4 years, I mean, Bottcher has been where Gushue is. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, the first time he's there, they're so due to win. They're so due to win, but they've always been there. And listen, I don't know what's been happening behind the scenes. I mean, it was a bit of a messy divorce. I think Brendan Bottcher, from their perspective, the PR kind of blowback they got was something that they'd never dealt with before. And, you know, I think it sort of affected them so far this year. But they knew all along they'd be here in their home province representing Team Canada as the defending champs. And it's been a long time since we've seen the Team Canada, Chris, as the 5th team on the betting board. So I agree with you on that. I mean, I think there is certainly value in a team like that, you know, in the past. And as we just mentioned, Mike McEwen right in that mix as well. And, you know, sort of a clear delineation from that top 6 and then the rest of it. But hey, we're always here for a good underdog story, and there are some interesting ones in this event.
Well, Glenn Howard's team last year, that magical run. Now, no Wayne Middaugh this year. At least we don't think so.
Yeah, who knows?
But I mean, if anyone watched that Ontario provincial final, and Glenn didn't even play, those guys didn't miss anything. The Epping rink scored in just one end, and were not able to get anything else. So, yeah, there were some forced blanks in there by both sides. But there's this team, you know, here's hoping Glenn can stay healthy, because I know he's banged up and he's been training all year just to get back at this. So, yeah, something sneaky about that one. You know, for them to be 22-1 to win the event, but only plus 105 to qualify from the pool, there's value there.
And that's the one thing I wanted to ask about. As an inexperienced curling bettor, I'd consider myself. I wanted to ask you guys, when you look at that to qualify from pool play, is there a number that sticks out to you that you think could be good value for the people that say maybe just want to sprinkle, they're not big on betting it outright, maybe they just want to get in on a plus money team? What's the team that you guys would look for in that to qualify from pool play section?
Well, you know what? If we're looking at a plus money team, I mean, I think you have to look at Ontario at plus 105, because once we get down beyond that, it's tougher. I mean, the Saskatchewan rink is not Dunstone's. Dunstone has been sort of the top squad for the last couple of years, but I mean, they go in as a wild card. So, I mean, I guess I would put there the number that I jumped on right early when the odds came out was on Manitoba at minus 141. The unfortunate thing is over the course of the past week, that number has ballooned to minus 185. Listen, I still think that they'll be there. But Chris, as you'd mentioned, I mean, especially when you're talking about a very narrow and a number of teams that could be in, like laying almost minus 200 on teams that are frankly on the bubble, which I mean, realistic they are, even, you know, just a numbers game, maybe a little bit tough to go. Although, heck, if you wanted a great story, of a team that, you know, has done it before. I'm going to go with what you just mentioned before with New Brunswick and James Grattan. They can squeeze out a couple extra wins, maybe build off the crowd. A plus 465 team to get out of the group play in certainly the side that I think is weaker than the others. I mean, it's important to note that Jacobs and Gushu are both on the same side. You've got Cooey, Dunstone, you know, the question marks with the Botcher rink, and then Ontario and Saskatchewan ahead of New Brunswick. So, you know, I'd say maybe by the numbers. And again, I probably am not going to go heavy on this or anything, but if you're looking for a value play, a bit of a long shot, you're getting almost 5-1 on New Brunswick. And Chris, as you mentioned before, I mean, this is not a team that hasn't won before. And I'm fascinated to see how the addition of Darren Moulding, along with everything else, may help them, you know, get to that next level.
They will be the everyman team. Right? Like they are the team. Like you might run into them at Tim Hortons on the way to the rink. Like that, the boys are the everyman team, and I love that about them. When it comes to a to qualify bet in the plus money, I think Jason Gunlickson might be a play to make at plus 175 if Brad Gushu's rink completely just disintegrates, which I don't think will happen, but you have to allow for everything they've been through. If Mike McEwen's team isn't where they need to be, then Gunlickson is the next rink in that Group B that should be the beneficiary of that. And I'll throw it back. Jake, I don't even know if you've ever seen this movie. You might be too young, but in The Wedding Singer, there's the clip where John Lovitz is at the side of the stage and he says he's losing his mind and I'm reaping all the benefits. And I think Jason Gunlickson could reap all the benefits if something were to happen with the teams ahead of him.
They're ready to go. They didn't have a great provincials. You know, as I mentioned, you know, they were out sort of early. The lot rink was the one that was challenging Mike McEwen at the end. But, you know, while the entire team probably isn't up to the quality of the teams at the top, the one thing about Gunner is that, I mean, he can pull out circus shots with the best of them. And we've seen some highlight reel ones from him before. I guess the key for them is to not force their skip to make those ones. But he has pulled it out before. They've just had a tough time consistently putting it together throughout the entire event. But I'd love to see it. They're great friends of the program and a lot of fun to watch.
I don't know if anyone forces him to make big shots. I think that's in his DNA.
Good point.
But you know, a good point when you're betting on Jason Gunlickson games is to look at the over because there's a whole lot of Hail Mary going on with that group. Sometimes he makes them, sometimes he doesn't, but it's generally from multiple points in either direction. So, for example, I'm looking at his first matchup against Brad Jacobs at 12.5 over minus 106. The Jacobs rink usually plays it cool, but when you have those kind of styles, you could get a big miss one way or the other, or a big hit one way or the other for a mitt full of points. So I'll be taking the over in that game.
Okay, so for the non-traditional curling fans that are just getting into it, Gunlickson's kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs. You're just hoping for points, high scoring. The defense might give up some points as well, but you're going
like
to
the Chiefs with Alex Smith.
Games.
He's like Chiefs
there you go.
He's not quite Mahomes, but an overall a good team that wins a lot, that could very well be in the playoffs, but you probably don't expect them to win the entire thing.
There you go.
Again, you know, you get a Mahomes guy in there, and you know, those really are the top skips of those top teams. I mean, to use that you know, that equation. You know, Jacobs, Kevin Cooey, Brad Gushu. I mean, those guys really have been the guys. And then, you know, Brendan Botcher has been up until this year, and I mean, that's why so many people, if they haven't been paying attention and they throw it up, I'm like, wait a second, how the heck is Botcher 13-1? But again, if you've been paying attention this year, there's been a lot of turmoil around that club and a lot of question marks about where they're at.
And that's where I lay. You know, I have become, you know, I've fallen in love with the sport. I'm following it more, and those numbers jumped out to me. And the big thing for me was the fact that just for that team and that rink to finish in the top 3 at plus 250. Like, this is a guy and a rink that in their sleep, they make it to the finals at the Brier. So that's a bet that it jumped out to me. But obviously, Chris, you bring up a great point. There's a lot of turmoil with that team. And their, you know, play as of late hasn't been as strong as what we've seen in the past. I will say, curling, I know the NBA gets a ton of play about being the drama league and everything that happens off the court. And I swear to God, curling needs to have a documentary series if this sport wants to really pop off, because my buddies and I who enjoy curling, we always say this league, because there is always drama. And it's so crazy because the guys who play the game are so damn nice. But when it comes to competition, it's cutthroat. It is pure drama. I absolutely love it. You talk about Drive to Survive. Tennis is doing their series. The PGA Tour is doing their series. They absolutely have to do something for curling, because I would be hooked, and I think it would be fantastic. And just all these little side storylines, everyone knows each other, teams jumping all over the place. I think it would be electric television.
Yeah, this league, and now it's this sport. And listen, it's a great idea. And Chris, if there was ever a time to get the cameras going, it's right around now, because as you mentioned, this is the sort of last run, the final year of an Olympic year, where many of these teams will absolutely be making significant changes and looking very different afterwards. And there's nothing more dramatic in the world of curling than the player movement that happens at the end of the Canadian Championships.
Well, maybe we need to talk to our friends over at Rogers who own the Grand Slam, and instead of Drive to Survive, maybe we need Slide to Survive, and see what happens. I'm going to propose. I'm going to pitch. Let's see, Slide to Survive or Sweep for Your Life. One of those two. we gotta have it. Can you imagine? And with the characters that are in this game,
that's what I mean.
Can you imagine having a camera crew on Ben Hebert? We'd probably have to put it out on like HBO, but it would be unreal.
There are plenty of them. I mean, just think of Johnny Moe, Glenn Howard. Tell you what, I mean, Mike McEwen's a pretty straight shooter, but I mean, a guy like Reed Carruthers is so much fun. He'd sort of be like the real nice guy of the group, and then you got a few of the bad boys as well in there in the mix. I mean, we're not even talking about the women. I mean, no shortage of drama from the women's side of things, especially with some of the top teams over the last even decade making huge changes. And to be honest, that botcher change with molding reminded me of some of the more newsworthy roster changes on the women's side of things. And that's what happens when teams have tons of success. I mean, fans get used to those players playing together, but sometimes it's not all as rosy as what we're seeing on the outside.
Well, I tell you, we found out how passionate the analytics crew are this week, but the curling fans, are passionate too. Like, it's not just passive. They are fully invested in the lives of these people.
Oh yeah.
Well, listen, we've talked a lot about the value on the board, and I mean, we talked about all the top teams. And Chris, I want to go to you. What can people kind of be looking for daily specials? I know we have a few out now. Huss mentioned a couple off the top. And we're going to see any boosted odds parlays from you guys like we had for the Olympic trials. That'd be awesome. I'm sure some people would love that. Anything like that?
Of course, yeah. We'll get some. It'll be organic when we collab on a play. Maybe we'll come up with a boosted play. But I mean, Matt's doing a great job. Like, first, I'm hammering these over on the blank ends for the draws and the days that he's got out. Like, I am smashing the over on the blank ends. It's like when I'm betting darts, you get to bet the number of 180s in the game. I'm betting the over on the blank ends. Absolutely.
We got the draw. Of course. So I mean, and there's just the 4 games on the first night, but the number of blank ends. And I will say I was trying to garner a little more information for the show, and sending a couple texts to some individuals that are close to the event. And I think early on we can expect a little bit more conservative play. Teams, still haven't played a ton on this ice. They're going to be feeling themselves out. And I think there'll be more safety first, if you will. And I think that will lead probably to maintaining the hammer throughout games, more blank ends early. So I'm with you on that, Chris. I mean, first couple draws, we got number of blank ends 7.5 and number of blank ends 5.5 for draw 2, which is interesting. Not sure maybe whether they think there'll be a couple of shorter games. We'll have to take a look at that. But certainly that first draw, that's just a couple of blank ends per matchup. And I think that's very likely when you're talking about a field of this caliber.
Well, here's something else that I can't believe we made it this far and we haven't mentioned it. The mixed doubles finalist is back in the Brier representing the Northwest Territories. Speaking of friends of the show, Mr. Jamie Cooey, who would also be unbelievable in Slide to Survive. But all jokes aside, watch out for him for pulling some underdog spreads and money lines.
Yeah, I see our guy Cooey is, plus 160 in his first matchup. I think maybe just because of his incredible contribution to our week in Saskatoon, I'm going to have to be laying down a little support for Team Northwest Territories going up against Nova Scotia in that first matchup. I just think back to just quickly on the Scotties for a second, and as well as the maybe the Olympic trials is a better example of it. The nature of early on, Chris, if you remember those first couple draws that we had done, we didn't go crazy with the bets on it. And I'm not saying that there was any massive upsets, but I do seem to remember that the amount of points went up as the week went on. So I do think there's an angle on some of the unders on early draws, especially with particular teams like Team Manitoba, although they're 3-point favorites or 3-rock favorites against a team like British Columbia right off the bat, as well as a team like Dunstone going up against New Brunswick in that first matchup. A hammer will probably be quite important on that, and could see that matchup getting under a big total of 12.5.
Yeah, blanks and underdog spreads as well, right? So unders generally will lead you to the spread being tighter. So that'll be kind of my strategy, I think, for the first couple of draws, taking those blank bets, taking underdog spreads, big ones, 1.5 can go either way. But when you get to the 2.5s, the 3s, and undoubtedly as the week goes on, we'll see big action on favorite spreads as well. That'll move the line. So remember what I always say about curling. The public loves to bet the favorite. It forces the line to move, puts the value on the underdog. So keep that in mind during the week.
All right. Well, we've gone through a lot of our futures. Huss, before we get into maybe diving into draw 1 and 2, and maybe we get to build one of our first boosted odds parlays. Before that, was there any of the future bets that maybe you've sprinkled on already that you haven't mentioned that you really like?
Well, I'll just, we jumped on Brad Jacobs to win the entire event right off the bat. The number was plus 330. Obviously, a few people have followed that because it's now plus 275. I'll say this, I'm fading Gushu. I think the number's too short and everything that they've been dealing with. Like, if they win, it's just a testament to how damn good he is, because there's so many other things that are in the favor of some of the other top teams that are sort of going against them. So listen, the numbers come down on Northern Ontario. I still like them to win. I think plus 275 is still a number you can stomach, although it would have been good to get it a bit earlier. But I will say this, Kevin Cooey at 440, I think is still some real good value. I mean, he is right there. And we saw it just recently in Saskatoon that, he can play with the best. They had that one terrible game. I believe it was against Jacobs at the end. It gave up one massive end. It really ended it for them. So the fact that they're, getting that much more on the odds than Gushu and Jacobs, I think goes well. And as far as the group winners, I really do like it. I mean, again, they're somewhat favorites. I mean, I got it originally at plus 150. It's now plus 120, but Cooey and Alberta to win Group A. This sort of reminds me of the Kerry Anderson bet, Chris, that was even money in the Scotties that ended up being almost a laugher. And listen, it's no disrespect to Dunstone or the Botcha rink, but the toughest route, I think, is through Group B. So I certainly expect Kevin Cooey to be winning Group A as the number 1 team through. And Jacobs, was originally plus 200 to win the group. It's now plus 150. But again, when you're talking about the fact that Gushu's there, I mean, essentially it's almost a head-to-head bet between those two, because I think it'll be tough for a team Manitoba or Gunlickson to win the group outright, although I do think they'll be barging in there in a conversation for the playoffs. So those ones right off the bat as far as for the entire event. And I've also got a nice future on Manitoba to make the playoffs. And I have a feeling, maybe you've convinced me, Chris, to maybe drop a little nickel on Gunner too, because if things don't go well for Brad Jacobs or for Brad Gushu's squad, especially early on, listen, they're champions, they're competitors, they'll continue to be there. But I think that if they're not in it midway through or things really go bad, it will be a real challenge for them to maintain the level of play for games that might be lost on it. But I would be surprised if they're not playing significant games in the second half. So that's sort of where I started with the futures.
And for me, for futures, I'm looking more at win totals here. So we've already touched on it. New Brunswick over 3.5 minus 127. We're going to give them the wins over Newfoundland, PEI, and Yukon. And then they've just got to win one: Saskatchewan, Ontario, Canada, Dunstone, or Cooey. And I'm willing to make that bet. They generally pull an upset. Yeah, they could also lose to PEI. That's probably the one that sinks that. But, when I look at James Grattan as kind of the best of the rest in that pool, so I like him over 3.5. And then you got to right back to the Jamie Cooey. His win total is 2.5 in the pool. He's going to beat Nunavut. We know that. And then he's still got games against Nova Scotia, Quebec, BC, and Gunlickson could be a winnable game for him as well. So I'm going to get Jamie Cooey and his, 75 Briers or whatever he's appeared at right now. I'm gonna ride his over 2.5. And there's something else that I really like, and I think the line will probably shift on this throughout the tournament. It's the number of blank ends in the gold medal game at 2.5. If you watch these top men's teams, the first end in a gold medal game is going to be a blank every single time, and then you only need 2 more. Brad Jacobs' teams love to blank. Gushu loves to have a couple of blanks in there. You blank to get the hammer going home. So I think over 2.5 blank ends in the gold medal game is a great bet.
One other one. Gushu, their total for pool wins is 7. I mean, listen, it's sort of online, and if you're wrong on all of these. But and again, minus 152, but under 7. And 7 would be a push. I really don't expect them to be going 8-0. So that's a number. And then Gunlickson is plus money on over 4.5 wins. So, it probably comes down to, whether they're getting 4 or 5. But, considering, I think, the issues around the Gushu team and the questions as to how they'll be going forward. And, that would maybe be a fun one for people around here to go. But, I'll probably be laying a little bit more on the McEwen rink than Gunlickson overall.
All right, there you have it. All the futures bets that are plugged in. I'm sure the boys will still be sprinkling until that first stone is thrown. So it's going to be an interesting Brier, but we said we got to dive into draw 1. It goes down on Friday night. Let's go through the draw 1 quickly. There's already draw 2 up there, so pipe up if there's maybe a game early on Saturday that you like. But let's go through draw 1. Starting things off, Alberta and Saskatchewan. Alberta's minus 435. You can get Saskatchewan at plus 2.5 at minus 122. New Brunswick taking on Dunstone. Dunstone, obviously the heavy favorite here. He is minus 2.5 at plus 210. New Brunswick at plus 295. You can get them plus 2.5 at minus 143. Newfoundland and Labrador taking on Yukon. Newfoundland minus 476 on the money line, minus 2.5 on the rock line at plus 105. Yukon plus 2.5 at minus 143. And then the last game on the list here, Ontario and Canada going head to head. This one, I don't know if it's the schedule for the TV, the feature game is out yet, but this one from a betting standpoint, certainly the most interesting, the closest match, as Ontario's plus 115 on the money line, Canada minus 147. You can get Ontario plus 1.5 at minus 161. And then you can get Botcher on the rock line at minus 1.5. Majority of the overs are mixed, sprinkled in at plus 12.5. There's a couple 13.5s there. And then I think that Ontario Canada game is at minus 11.5. You see all the odds up on the screen now. So guys, anything, we'll start with you, Huss. Is there anything in draw 1 or maybe even draw 2? Let's kind of put our minds together. We don't have to put it now together, but let's get the wheels turning. See if we can get this boosted odds parlay for either day 1 or day 2 rolling.
I'm high on Matty Dunstone and wildcard team number 2. Now they are laying 2.5 at +110 against New Brunswick. I will be staying away from the rock line. And listen, it's a big money line, but I do like them to win that game at -417. Although maybe that's a stay away game. We talked about Molden coming in, maybe that it makes me a bit nervous, but I do think Dunstone, after a tough start at the Olympic trials, will be focused and come out hot. The Ontario-Canada game is very interesting, but I'm going to give Brendan Botcher the benefit of the doubt. They've had a lot of time to prepare for this and get ready. And, while the Glenn Howard's team has been a great story, still questions as to his readiness and what that lineup is even going to look like. So I think I'll probably go with -147. I will lay the 2.5 rocks on Alberta, though. I think this is, as much as Botcher is the defending champ, Kevin Cooey is synonymous with Alberta curling. And I think that this is a statement game. It's, the Saskatchewan team is not the Dunstone rink, although Pat Simmons is involved. They do have some good younger players. But to me, I think this is a statement game for Kevin Cooey. They come out. I like them to cover that number at -109. So I got those 3 in. I'm just looking at it right now, +299 if you pull that off. And I know, Chris, we've talked about some of the totals too that I didn't hit, basically just looking at the straight games.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, for me, it's going to be watch a little bit first before I get too much into the spreads. But yeah, when you look at it, if you like Brendan Botcher's rink to beat Glenn Howard's rink at -147, and then you tack on a Dunstone and an Alberta money line with that, it's +156. So that'll probably be my play for the first draw. I don't know this Newfoundland rink. I don't know them at all. They're a massive favorite against the Yukon, and Yukon is usually an also ran, as Nunavut is at this Nunavut is at this event. So as much as I hate to do it, I could see an all fave parlay going out on draw 1, even though that scares the hell out of me.
Well, I was just going to say the all favorite parlay, if you go Alberta, Dunstone, and Canada right now at that pays +156. Do we want that to be our boosted, or do we maybe throw Alberta -2.5, get that up to 299? Maybe we boost that up. I don't know. That's just something to sit on. We don't have to do it right now. It's just I wanted the meeting of the minds to get the ball rolling there.
Well, I'm fine if we want to boost something just with all the favorites, but if we want to make it interesting, I mean, Cooey, as I said, I feel good about Cooey and the rock line. I don't want to be the reason why we blow the first parlay. So if we want to be a little more chill on draw number 1, we can do it. I do remember a couple of the all favorite parlays busting out in the first day in Saskatoon, but then having some success with the favorites just simply on the money lines, kind of 2 through 3. And then you needed to get away from that because we really did start seeing more upsets, after teams have been playing. I think teams that had lost before, people had bailed on them, feeling better about the ice, being a little bit more confident on that. So that will be something to watch as you get into like draws 4 and 5 for these teams. But as you're right, we incredibly, Chris, I think back to Saskatoon, had incredible discipline, which is not normally something synonymous with this group of characters through the first day and a half of the event, and then had some real success for the better part of the week heading into the weekend.
Yeah, we did. And here's the other thing on the all faith parlay. People are betting that anyway. So let's get creative. Okay, let's go Alberta -2.5. Let's go Canada -1.5.
Okay.
And will we throw the Dunstone money line on there? That's +423. Sure. Probably run that up to maybe 5-1 or so and call that.
Book it.
Right,
let's do it. Alberta -2.5, Canada -1.5, Dunstone money line at -417. And that sounds like a parlay to me, +423, whatever we can get it up to. Let's get it up in the boosted odds just in time for tomorrow's lock shop, and we can get people to jump on that tomorrow before the first rock is thrown.
Yeah, we'll wait on the odds to put that up on Friday, but look for it around 2 o'clock Eastern, something like that.
There you go.
I'd say we'll make it live around that.
There you go. Perfect. I love that. That's a perfect way to end this off. Before we do end it off, though, Huss, you mentioned the lock shop. What can we expect tomorrow on the lock shop? Are you going to get a partner parlay as well? I know.
Well, you know what? I'll say this, because we've already done this work. I mean, we'll have Chris on. We'll probably get to some of this, but I'll tell you what, if you could possibly get that for 1 p.m. Eastern as opposed to 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing the show at that point. And, we can sort of debut our first boosted odds parlay for the Brier on the lock shop tomorrow and give people an extra hour to get in. Of course, it's 7:30 Eastern, I believe, is when the draw starts. 6:30 here, 5:30 out in Alberta. So we will certainly have, or actually, maybe that's actually an extra hour. It might be 1 hour later because I don't think they would start it at 5:30.
I've got 8:30. I've got 8:30
okay,
Eastern.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 8:30 Eastern. So it'll be nice. We'll have a little bit of time to do that. We'll certainly be getting into a bunch of the hockey. Obviously tomorrow night, big game here in Winnipeg, Jets and Dallas. What we'll focus in on probably the Saturday slate of games. Who knows? Maybe lean on you guys for some college basketball picks. This is about the time I realized, well, I have paid zero attention to any college hoops, and the madness is here, and it's time to start doing brackets and making the most uneducated bets I'll make all year long on a sport that I don't watch, with the exception of 1 month. So we'll certainly get into that. Focus in on the hockey and kind of get a bit of an update as to how our golf bets are going. I couldn't believe it, Pat. You'll love this. I'm going through the list. By the way, shout out to Coolbet gang. Taylor Pendrith looking good. What an eagle he had earlier today. Loving those boosted odds on Taylor Pendrith. He's going to be our favorite golfer every week throughout with those boosted odds. But I'm sitting there starting at the bottom looking for Jason Day. Okay, going up. Geez, this is good. We're now into the top of the cut. Still no Day. Oh my God, we're now into the top 10. I'm like, where the hell's Jason Day? He just signed a new deal. He's the Bridgestone ball guy there in Ohio, and then he pulled out of the tournament. So I'm riding just with 2 guys, but Willie Z had a nice start. He's looking good, and then we'll see what Hideki does a little later on. So a little update on all of that, and maybe we'll even talk to some people smarter than us about the UFC and get a few picks in there on that. I don't know. We're honestly, the Friday shows, still trying to wrap my head around the fact that we're without football for a while, but we'll make the best of it. The Tuesday show's been big now because we can get into the golf beforehand, but no shortage of things at Coolbet for us to jump on, and the Brier will certainly be a part of it.
Well, Huss, I was expecting you to say bringing up disc golf. I think it's the Memorial this weekend. I thought you'd be talking about banging chains here. Oh, look, what's going on?
You know what? I have to admit that usually I start getting into the disc golf into March and April, so I'm gonna need to refresh myself. Okay, you know what? Blank bet. Whatever my man the Saki bomb is, Ricky Wysocki, I will ride with him, much like I just blindly bet Chase Elliott last week in the Wise 400 on NASCAR. And I'll tell you what, that disc golf was a hell of a lot of fun last year to get into. I now actually want to go to one of these pro events to see how good they are. Man. And I can't tell you how much time I've spent, this is embarrassing, on YouTube and Instagram just watching disc golf highlights. So I feel I know more about the sport and more about the players, maybe not as much as where they're at right now. So I'm going to give it a couple weeks before full-fledged wide world of wagering happens, because you know what's March 16th? Aussie rules. First week of the season. I am all ready for it. We may have to do actually a futures special on the Aussie rule season. But yes, first kick is at the Melbourne Cricket Ground is the 16th. I'm already excited for that.
Melbourne is the favorite. The Western Bulldogs plus 650, the second favorite.
Who was your team again? It was some sort of bird name. It was the
Sydney Swans.
Yes, the Sydney Swans. I love it. Hey Siri, show me a degenerate gambler. There you go. Right? Oh, this is awesome. Us, man. I cannot thank you enough for coming on. This is awesome. Like you said, you can be here on every week. We're going to have you on sooner rather than later because this was awesome. We got the Brier this week. Maybe we'll grab you on in a couple weeks. Maybe we'll get you to come on and blindly bet college basketball with us.
Well, you know what? For sure. Actually, definitely around the madness. I mean, I will do my homework, kind of see how teams are trending. I would not suggest anyone tail me, but listen, it's always the lady in accounting that wins the pool every year. So maybe I will be that, just kind of let's let her rip, and maybe it'll turn out well. But again, yes, we are counting down. We've got 14 days. So if you do want to get into a little Aussie rules, I'll do some major work, talk to my contacts on the other side of the world with some tremendous information for the Aussie rules season, and we'll get ready for that. But listen, guys, love working with the Coolbet gang. We're doing what we're doing with Dustin Tuesday and Thursday on the Lock Shop. Folks, check that out and search wherever you get podcasts. But you guys want to do it, I'm good to go anytime for you all.
Absolutely love it. Thanks so much again. You can check him out at Winnipeg Sports Talk as well, each and every day, Monday to Friday. They stream live. And before we let you go, I can't believe I didn't let you plug Winnipeg Sports Talk. What do you got going for Friday's episode?
You know what? Friday is going to be awesome. My guy Dale Weiss, who longtime NHLer, just finished up his pro career back in town. And of course, a former Montreal Canadian. A lot of BS between the Jets and the Habs. Mark Scheifele's public enemy #1 out in Quebec. I believe Neil Pionk is the most wanted man in Southern Ontario. I don't know how the Jets have become the NWO of the NHL, but that's basically what's happened. So Weezy's going to join me. We'll have a great conversation. We have him on all the time, but now that he's back home, Ken Weeb's going to talk to us about big Jets Stars game tomorrow night as they cling to very faint playoff hopes. And the legend Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, we have banned baseball from even being mentioned on the program because these idiots can't get their shit together. But we will break that for a little bit just to get some perspective from Lee on another labor stoppage in Major League Baseball and a few other topics. But it'll be Jets heavy and a lot of fun hockey stories with Dale Weiss tomorrow at 1:00 Central on YouTube every day. But just hit us up, podcast, YouTube, Winnipeg Sports Talk, subscribe, and join us when you can.
Any Tim Peel stories tomorrow? Any Tim Peel content?
Tim Peel can get bent. You want to see an angry hustler? Go to today's YouTube. Probably go about. It took 2 minutes for me to go on a rant. I think from about 2 minutes to 15 minutes was me just unloading on Tim Peel, and a desperate, attention-grabbing ex-ref that can't stand that he's not in the spotlight anymore. And by the way, he was always in the spotlight because he sucked as a ref, and it was always look at him. So listen, you've triggered me again, guys. I need to go do a walk around the spot right now, just and breathe. Breathing exercises. Have a good one, fellas.
See you later, Huss. Once again, we want to thank Andrew Hustler Paterson for joining us there. And guys, I know it's Thursday, but we still have some weekend wagering we have to do. So there's a big UFC fight. The NLL is heating up. We've got NHL, NBA. I did mention UFC, Chris, and I think you have already placed a bet on the big fights for UFC 272, haven't you?
I have, and there's no analytics involved. I'm just betting against Colby Covington. I think he's such a douchebag. And here you know what? I just was talking about being rude to people. I think this guy is exempt from it. He's exempt.
I was going to say, so it comes to a point where you can no longer pull the "hey, you're not being nice to me" card.
He invites it, right? So I'm just betting on Masvidal. It's like I think I got it at like 275 plus 275. He's a huge underdog, and I'm not sure Covington's a fighter. He's not like that. I don't know if anyone should be a plus 275 dog against him. So I'm gonna roll with that. And if I lose, I'll sleep well because at least I bet on the good guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I certainly for sure will be wagering on that one. I always like to get a little more juice and go with either the knockout or maybe decision. But this one, like you said, plus 275, like that's ridiculous. You get to see Masvidal potentially knock someone out who you hate and also win some money off that. Man, why the hell not?
Even Amanda Nunes lost. So
that's what I mean.
When you see huge underdogs in UFC, and it's a main event, so obviously he belongs there. So I ride with the dogs. Although favorites have been kind of the draw of the day in UFC cards lately, but yeah, it'll be Masvidal for me. I just like the guy, so no real deep hard hitting analysis there. But I cheer for him. so that's it.
Absolutely. Friend of the program of JD Bunkus. I know
right.
they're buddies. They love having their chats. But Jake, I think you're going with a principal bet here. Something that you are very passionate about.
Well, unfortunately, we don't do D3 hockey. I'm heading to Oswego this weekend to see Oswego take on Geneseo in the final of the SUNYAC. So I had the line set in my group chat. I think Oswego is going to be the dog there on the road in Jenny, but we're hoping the boys can get the upset. I'm going to the association, though. We got Lakers at Clippers, which they play out of the same arena, so really no home advantage there. But the Lakers have been atrocious as of late. The Russell Westbrook experiment has not worked out for this team. And the Clippers, without George, without Leonard, they've been solid. They've got themselves in position to maybe get one of those play-in spots, make the playoffs in the West, and see what they can do if they can get those big dogs back. Right now, Clips favored -2.5. I think it's already jumped half a point. I'm just going to jump on the favorite here. Fade LeBron. After I rode with him for the All-Star game, they didn't cover the 5.5. I'm going to fade him this time around. So Clippers -2.5 tonight it's the crypto.com arena. It's not Staples anymore. So yeah,
that's crazy.
I'm going with that.
That's crazy. It'll always be the Staples to me. But so Lakers lose tonight, but the Lakers win on Saturday night.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
I know. Exactly. Hey, big D3 puck guy. I know my stuff. I know the SUNYAC. I know all that good stuff. What I do know is lacrosse. And I said, I was trying to be humble last week. But again, another one of my bets cashed. I can't miss. And I'm going back to the well here. I told you guys, Saskatchewan was going to win that game. They won that game. And I believe that this is a team that has caught fire and they're going to turn things around. They're playing Panther City, who's coming off a big win, and they continue to be that scrappy team. But for me, Saskatchewan is a team that they can't lose. They're playing playoff lacrosse now. So I'm going to ride with them. I'm taking them at -2.5. You can get plus money on that. Go Rush, because this team, I even said on my podcast Off the Crossbar that I could see them winning the championship at 11-1. And this is a team that at the start of the year, I think they were the second favorites.
First, I think.
Yeah, them and Halifax might have even been tied. I think you're right. And they just kept losing and losing and not looking like themselves, but they lost a bunch of 1-goal games. Now this team has found their chemistry. They look great on defense. They picked up a new goalie in Eric Penny. He was great on Saturday night. So I'm all in on Saskatchewan. I'm going to take them to cover, but I would be advising for people to maybe sprinkle on them to win the NLL Cup at 11-1, or even to make the finals at +450 as well. Chris, I know you're going to the Rock game this weekend. First time. There'll be fans in that building in a while, and I'm excited. I know I'm not going. I'll be in Halifax this weekend, but it's good that this new fan base in Hamilton are going to get some fans back into the building, because you were there. That was an awesome atmosphere.
It was criminal what happened to the Toronto Rock. Opening night was unbelievable experience. Like, I actually brought 3 people with me that had never been to a lacrosse game. They want to go back. They're actually calling me this week like, hey, do you have tickets? Do you have tickets? So, I mean, if you're in Southwestern Ontario, if you can get to Hamilton on Friday night, check it out. It's 90s night, so right in my wheelhouse. I cannot wait.
That's awesome.
I'm hoping there'll be some MC Hammer, maybe some Boys to Men, Canadian artists from the 90s. I don't even know. Shania Twain. She was in Vegas last weekend. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I mean, the guys with the Rock are so great in their business ops as well. And I just can't wait. And if you have a chance, make sure you get to First Ontario Center. It's a great atmosphere. And if you've never seen an NLL game and you live anywhere in our country or in the US, go check out your local team. It's affordable. It's fun. It's amazing to bet on because there's so much offense. It's a roller coaster. I can't say enough good things about the league.
Absolutely. And the Toronto Rock are coming off a loss to the New York Riptide, who are one of the bottom feeders in the East, but man, offensively, they are an electric team to watch. Keep your eyes on 51, Jeff Teat. He's let's call him Connor McDavid of the NLL. He is the brightest star. He's the rookie of the year. And, or I should say he's going to win the rookie of the year. He's a guy that you're not going to want to take your eyes off. But
so are we going over 20? Are we going over 21.5 then?
The only thing about that is Nick Rose had a pretty off game. The defense had an off game. So I think he might have a bounce back, but that offense is too electric. And I honestly think that the Rocks offense is starting to find the stride. So yeah, screw it. Take the over. We'll go over.
The over.
But
let's go.
But make sure you check Jeff Teet's player props before, because I think he could be putting on a show.
Okay, I'm not allowed to go there and cheer for the opposition, but maybe like a quiet. Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Like off the side fist bump. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. All righty. Well, there you have it, folks. Episode number 7 of the Coolbet Canada podcast. We want to thank Andrew Hustler Paterson for joining us here today. Of course, we want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you don't already, subscribe to the podcast or on YouTube. You can hit that button down there. And every time we'll drop a video, you will get notified. For everyone here at Coolbet Canada, he's Jake Bowen-Moss. He's Chris Abbott. I'm Pat Gregoire. We want to say thanks. And as always, stay cool.